Rental prices drop in Melbourne. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I'm still working through that morning stein of coffee, and I thought we'd look at this article from domain.com.au. It's part of a trio of articles we've been looking at the last few days, discussing, rental prices crashing or falling, or tenants getting the upper hand in different cities around Australia. This time we're looking at Melbourne. So renters are getting the upper hand with Melbourne rental prices slashed during the pandemic. And a big part of this is, we've seen in Brisbane, we've seen it in Canberra, and we're seeing it here in Melbourne, is a lot of the international students, the international demand for short-term rentals has evaporated, everyone. It's evaporated. Migration has also evaporated. You know, when you migrate to a country, you need somewhere to rent, even short-term, even for a few months. Maybe all the renovations that will happen, I'm being facetious here, will drive up the demand for short-term rentals and suck it all up. What do you think? What do you think? And the question is, how is this going to affect the value of investment properties? When it's going to, it might actually make it more valuable. Because just imagine if you're making no rent, how much you can negative gear it. Wouldn't it be fantastic, guys? So renters gain the upper hand with Melbourne rental prices slashed during the pandemic. More than a quarter of advertised rental properties across Melbourne have had their asking prices slashed in recent months as landlords tried to lure new tenants in the midst of the pandemic outbreak. In the city's notoriously tight rental market, new data shows renters have gained an upper hand, particularly in dense built-up areas like Sunnybank and the CBD, where more than 41% of all rentals were discounted last month, according to an analysis of rental listings compiled by Domain. 41% were cut. That's the thing, everyone. When you invest in these stock standard apartments, sure, they look pretty, sure, the buildings are nice, but you've got tens, if not hundreds, of other competitors offering the exact same product. It's not unique or special. Sure, you may be a little bit higher. Sure, you may, there are tiny differences, but overall, it's not unique or special. People could even move from one to the other without needing a moving company. You could carry the furniture up and down the stairs yourself if you really wanted to. So, and that's where everyone's pushing it forward as such a good investment strategy. Or the property spookers. The inner city rental market was hardest hit by the pandemic because of its exposure to overseas migration and international students, Domain senior research analyst Nicola Powell said. With the closure of borders and universities turning to remote learning, that demand has fallen off a cliff. And will it return? Will it return? We looked at an earlier article today where people were jumping into the stock market. It's nothing but good news. It was quite odd actually reading a piece like that from the ABC, so positive about investing. Maybe it's just because I'm watching YouTubers that will share stories about horrific losses from Wall Street bets for my entertainment. Bit of schadenfreude. But you'd think there'd be a little bit more double-sided. But then again, everyone's a genius going up. And will property hit the floor and will everyone be a genius jumping in now? Will they throw everything at it? That's kind of what I'm a little worried about. The government will throw everything they can at property because that's their strategy. Dr. Powell also noted the demographic most severely impacted by the pandemic were those aged under 29, who were more likely to rent in metropolitan areas and work in industries ravaged by the lockdown, such as hospitality, retail, or the arts. And based on absolutely no data, I would argue that's also the demo that has the least likelihood of having money stashed aside, have a savings bank, have an emergency fund. Am I being unfair there? I'd also say, the Zoomers. It was anticipated that they would be ultra-conservative. It looks like that polling was quite wrong. From what we're seeing, which is a bit of a shame. So, and as tourism ground to a halt during the nationwide lockdown, an influx of short-term holiday properties also shifted onto the rental market, boosting the supply of apartments to rent. It's flooded. Airbnb has flooded the rental market. And there's nothing special, everyone, about these investments. It's just demand. We've got international students, you've got tourism, you've got migration. Population growth in Australia for a long time has substantially been driven by net overseas migration, by driving, getting more people come to the country. And, our lifestyle is good. The weather is fantastic. It's a peaceful civilization here. But, I kind of feel sorry for people they sucker over here when there's no work. Come do that master's degree and never get a job in it. At the time of writing, there were more than 8,000 properties available to rent in Melbourne's central business district, and a further 5,000 listed rentals in Sunnybank. That is a huge number. That's if you look at one of those properties, you're competing with it pretty much nearly every one of those, in one way or another. Property managers say landlords in inner Melbourne have been increasingly willing to negotiate in a bid to prevent their empty properties from languishing on the market. That this is the market correcting, everyone. You're going to see cheaper rents. You're going to see cheaper rents, and then eventually you'll see cheaper properties. But the danger is they won't let the market correct. They'll intervene. That seems to be the predominant political will in our civilization. Intervention in the market one way or another. That and apathy. Most people don't care about politics. Someone left a really good comment on a previous video. They were saying, whenever one of my friends says they don't care about politics, I reply and tell them politics cares about you. And I thought that was quite good and quite appropriate. Because we've had it pretty good here in Australia. I mean, come on. For the last 30 years, we've had good times, one way or another. Even the tough times have been good. So you can't blame some people for being a bit apathetic politically. When there's a lot of when there's a lot of apartments in the market, it becomes a bit of a tenant's market. Barbara Baltus, branch manager, at Dingle Partners Richmond office. Tenants paying $400 to $410 a week can now pick up an apartment for roughly $380 a week. So over the course of a year, that's a big savings. Yeah, it is. You'd probably get down to $350, get down to $300. That'll allow you to spend more money on avocados. So the proportion of rental listings with rent discounts, we can see here 33.2, in inner south 24, inner east 23.9, northeast 19.4, southeast 16.5, outer east 13.8, northwest 18.5. I grew up in Coldstream. Where would that be? That would be outer east probably. So data compiled by Domain revealed that of all the city's rental properties which were reduced in price in April, the median discount was 5.4%, up from 4.2% a year earlier. While the discount had not changed dramatically, the proportion of rentals discounted reached 27% compared to 13% in April. 27% of people and nearly 30% are having a discount. Ms. Baltus said dropping the rent was the most common way to entice new tenants, although some landlords had gone as far as offering several weeks of free rent. They're creating incentives. They want to get people in their properties. This is no different to retail. No different to the retail sector. But the market was now showing signs of stabilizing, she said. I don't see rents going down any further. Why? Because you've had an increase in inquiries? What's the basis of that? I tell you, I see rents going down further. I see rents going down a lot further when JobKeeper disappears, when the mortgage holidays disappear. I mean, can it be possible you sign a lease now and say subject to change or revision upon my demand with, I don't know, you just sign a 3-month lease and then renegotiate in September, see what happens. Can you see rents going down then, everyone? Can you see people desperate to get anyone into their investment property just to help make the repayments? Those people with 6 investment properties, each one negative geared, and that they're paying interest only because property always goes up. Among those trickling back to open for inspections in the city are hospitality workers. The restaurant industry is coming back, so the people who were laid off or had an uncertain future are now feeling a bit more certain, Ms. Baltus said. We'll have to see how the ramifications of the recession. Here's the thing. You have a generation so young they don't know what a recession is. They don't remember it. I barely remember the recession. I was a child when all of a sudden my father and mother were quite worried about work. Work just completely dried up in the construction sector. Took a big hit. That's when we moved to Queensland. Don't hold it against me. I did grow up in Victoria. I didn't know what rugby was when I came up here. You know, they were playing AFL so funny. They weren't kicking it and running into each other. It was strange. It was really strange because down in Victoria, there was no rugby back in the 80s, or none that I knew of. And AFL was everywhere, on the telly everywhere. I guess that's just as a kid what you're exposed to. The data showed rental discounts were more prevalent in certain suburbs. In Brunswick West, Caulfield, Docklands, Hampton, Prahan, Toorak, and West Melbourne, with more than 30% of rentals, which included houses and apartments, were slashed in price last month. Meanwhile, the pandemic did not appear to compel landlords to drop prices in other parts of the city, such as Cremorne, Canterbury, and Burwood, with less than 3.5% of rentals were discounted online. But Albion Vergara of Harcourt's First said the data would not account for the offers accepted when the advertised price was not dropped. Even though it looked full price, we were encouraging offers, he said. So there you go. So it's like the auction clearance rates. We don't have all the data. Adding that up to a quarter of his Oakley South office's deals were negotiated at the height of the pandemic. Things are definitely stabilizing now, but people are still trying to put in cheek offers here and there. Dr. Powell said discounts were a good indicator of rental prices in the broader market. Tenants are in the driving seat and the rental prices are likely to go down, she said. Melbourne's city-wide vacancy rate rose to 2.9% in May, up from 1.6% earlier in the year. So it's getting close to doubling, a 50% increase, or 100% increase in vacancy rates, everyone. What do you think? So here we have it, the latest in our examples of property prices where rents are going down. Investment properties are taking a hit. And the question I put to you is, how do you think this will affect, I'll just bring up this chart, how do you think this will affect property prices? Property always goes up, but we have a very short-term memory, don't we? And we consider ourselves special and lucky. I'm worried that property is to Australia what the stock market is to the US, and the state will intervene and prop it up however they can. And then there'll be more incentive to invest in property and less incentive to invest in other innovative things, which might actually help our civilization become more than a quarry with houses. You know, I guess it worked at the Eureka Stockade. Well, no, not the Eureka Stock. Well, Eureka. You know, houses and a mine. That's all we need. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the work I do here, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us via our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.